Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Meade.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out.
But actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Oh, hi, babe.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good.
I'm getting just so excited to be here because now I feel like we're finally getting a little bit of feedback. People have heard us. People are commenting and actually I think we're making people feel not alone, which is why we're here. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know. It's been way more fun than I thought it would be. I knew it'd be fun, right? Because these are conversations we'd be having whether we were recording or not. It's talking about things that we enjoy talking about and, something that's been important in our lives. But it's also been nice to hear that people are like, okay, yeah, this isn't just a me thing.
Yeah, totally. So should we talk about a really good, juicy one today, which I'm sure this will be one of the more listened to episodes because we want to throw most of, if not all of our good coaching at you while we talk about cravings, alcohol cravings.
A big one, isn't it? Oh my gosh, so huge. And by the time that this actually comes out, it'll be probably around when people are maybe finishing up a dry January or it's in the new year and thinking about what do I do about my relationship to alcohol. And, we've talked before, we touched on before, I think, the different approaches to doing this work and exploring a relationship to alcohol. I thought that was a good place to start today because, we've talked about the difference between freedom from alcohol. We've talked about being alcohol-free. What are the differences between those? But what are the different ways of approaching changing your relationship to alcohol? Whether you're like me, I read this Naked Mind book and Annie says in the beginning, don't change anything about your drinking right now. You do not have to stop drinking. You don't have to quit it. Just keep doing what you're doing and open to curiosity. That was massive for me. Other people, yeah. It's different. I'm going to remove the alcohol first, and then I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Remind our listeners what your experience was, your approach.
So I dove in head first, really. I decided I was going to take a break and then I devoured all the material as I was doing it, which for me, I think there's something really valuable in taking a break because you get to start to feel the benefits of feeling better while educating and empowering yourself in all the things that it actually was doing to your brain and body. So yeah, I just dove in head first. And when I started to feel so much better and understand scientifically why, because I knew what was happening to my brain and body when I was drinking, it just it was an easy, it wasn't easy. That's not the right word, but it was, it got to the point where it was easy not to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's so great about this space and what we do is there's no wrong or right way or prescriptive. There's no, I don't know how many times I have a new client who's starting with me and they're like, okay, now, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And no, you don't have to change anything about the behavior yet. The behavior part will come when we work on the thoughts and the feelings. And some people need that pause like I did where, as long as I was trying not to do the thing that I didn't want to do, there was so much resistance. There was so much noise in that. I wasn't open to learning what I could learn about my relationship to alcohol. So for me, doing it the way that Annie says in the book, just pause, get curious. That was so huge for me. And so, I think it's great to remind people there's no wrong or right way to do this, but thinking about your approach to this does create kind of a different way of approaching all the things related to it. So
yeah, 100%. And that's that is the very first actual coaching tip, if you will, that we want to give, is like the first thing, if you do have a craving, is to take that pause and be curious, right? Because like what is that craving saying? And what is that craving? Like for me, it was the craving for wine was a craving for rest, or the craving for wine was really a craving for relaxation, or to shut off, after my mom died, to shut off the grief and the sadness that I was feeling. It was always a craving for something else. It was always a craving for a feeling, not actually for fermented grape juice.
Right. Yeah. Which when you zoom out and you get really curious, you can see that that's what it is. It's not really the alcohol that you want. It's the book, the story that says that it's going to help you feel some way that you're looking to feel. And, as someone who did it this different way, where it was like pause, keep drinking while you're doing it, being curious, be open, which helped me, really put down those weapons of shame and blame so I could. From the point of becoming free from alcohol, I never experienced a craving per se. But in the past, trying to do the breaks from drinking the dry Januaries and the weight loss cleanses and the things that, the craving was something that was a habitual response as much as I'm uncomfortable, and my brain going like, this is the thing that you do when you're uncomfortable. Like, this is where wine serves that, because that's the thing that it's been conditioned to do for so long. And so there's that like habitual response that comes. And then there's that, where we kind of see those stories that say that there's also some like benefit here. Like, if I'm craving wine, I'm out with my friends and I'm not going to drink tonight, but I'm craving it. Well, is it because, I feel like I'm going to miss out on something if I don't? Is it because my blood sugar is low? And so normally, like, when my blood sugar is low, I'm uncomfortable. And so, my mind goes to needing that relief. So getting really
the blood
curious.
Sugar one's good. Yeah, that one's really good. I still get that. Like, I get, and I don't even remember if we talked about this in one of the previous episodes, but like, when you get tired and hungry and your blood sugar's off, like, that's when you make the worst decisions with everything: food, alcohol, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like going to the grocery store hangry.
We did talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you have an alcohol craving. It's similar to that, like being hangry at the grocery store. And so if you approach it from that, and also thinking about how, like, even backing it up maybe a few steps and even saying like, well, what are my thoughts about having alcohol cravings? Because I know that as someone that was trying so hard to make this change and kept bumping up against, not being able to make this change, some of my head noise around that before I found this naked mind was, I'm gonna want it, and then I'm gonna give in again, because that's what I've done in the past. And then it perpetuates this is hard. I can't do it. Here I go again, failing. Like, I'm never going to get this. And so if we kind of back up even and prep for like, what are my thoughts about an alcohol craving? And so therefore, when they do come, because by the way, they're thought made, so they're going to come automatically, perhaps, then you have that kind of mindset. Like, is this a growth opportunity, or is this something that I'm panicked about having because it's going to mean that here I go failing again?
Yeah, that's so good. I love that you said that, and to start like that, because it's so true. You have to just start there. And I think, I've got clients that come to me, and when we go through this kind of stuff, I have a lot of people that say, oh, it's just a habit. It's just a habit. And so it's diving deeper than that. Like, obviously we know, we can explain how the brain creates neural pathways and all of that stuff, and habit loops and all that stuff. And of course, like, you can get the craving because drinking at a certain time of the day is a habit, but there's still a thought, right? There's still something that you originally started this whole thing for, The
perceived benefit, for sure. Yeah.
Like, the perceived benefit.
What is this thing going to solve or attempt to solve, or what do I weigh underneath? What do I think this is going to help me avoid or solve or fix? Kind of using some of those questions in that, when in the middle of an alcohol craving, it's using that curiosity to say, what am I looking for it to do here? Is it really going to do that? Well, I don't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's I think this is something that we get a lot too, like the difference, or people use interchangeably, but the difference between like a craving and an urge.
Yeah.
And does it even matter what the difference is? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I personally use them interchangeably.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I think it's, depending on your approach to this journey, whether you're doing the kind of alcohol experiment way where it's like, all right, I'm going to do 30 days alcohol-free and just, learn that way, the way you did, or the other way. The craving is something as like when your body's used to having this substance in your body on a regular basis, there is that physiological kind of response to it. So to your point, like that habitual part that comes, internally. And then also it's the thinking part as a different part of that that's pointing to that, perceived benefit. And so thinking about cravings and urges, it doesn't really matter. I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. But,
Yeah.
But when you can think of it in terms of the larger part, the bigger part is that thought part, the story that we're telling ourselves as related to that. What's our mindset about the craving and the urge, and when we're having one?
Yeah. And this can be really hard. And I have felt this I felt this myself, but from others as well, is like when you're not even used to, when your perceived benefit of drinking is to numb out, and you're not even used to like thinking about your thoughts, right? Thinking about tackling a craving thought. It's like, I'm already asking you to deal with all the thoughts about all the things that you're trying to drown out. And now I'm also trying to ask you to think about the thoughts that are asking you to drink. So I realize we both realize that this can be overwhelming, but it's so important. And it's so, so good if you can just start to figure out what those voices inside your head are really saying that you need when you get these cravings for wine or alcohol.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And pausing to do that. Mm-hmm. Pausing, setting a timer. I know we've talked about that before. That's one of our favorite. Both of us use that a lot as a tool for people. Setting a timer for anything that feels like an auto response or like our reaction to something. Pausing and setting a timer and coming back to it so that whether you're choosing to do it or not, it doesn't really matter. It's putting yourself in that place of choice versus responding out of that reactionary, hangry in the grocery store kind of mode where it's like, oh, all of a sudden, my plan for the night is off because I'm responding to the greater discomfort that I feel because I'm hungry and I'm off emotionally and all of those things. So set a timer, 15 minutes, and then come back. And, there's no wrong or right way to do it. What are you making it mean if you have an alcohol craving and you drink? Let's talk about that. What are you making it mean if you give in, so to speak, or you don't survive, so to speak, quote unquote, the craving? Manage those thoughts around it and open to the experimental mindset like you did with your journey was like picture perfect from that standpoint of like, okay, I'm going to just see. And when you're in that experimental mindset, place, it's lighter and there's not that resistance that comes along with, I can't do this or I've got to survive this, or this is so hard. All of that is going to create that compounded discomfort.
Yeah.
Making it doubly hard not to do the thing we don't want to do.
Right. Yeah. It's so true. Should we talk about my favorite tactic?
Yes, please. It's such a good one.
So this is not just my favorite tactic, but I think it's pretty much just everybody's favorite tactic. And so if you guys haven't heard of play the tape forward, this is such a great, great tactic when you are having an alcohol, wine, what have you craving, right? So it involves everything we just said, right? It involves pausing and just taking a minute and it is what it says, play the tape forward, right? So I always tell my clients, this is what my tape looked like, right? The tape was, I'm going to have one glass of wine, but the one glass of wine that I'm saying I'm going to have is always going to turn into 3/4, if not the whole entire bottle. And I'm going to get a horrible night's sleep. I'm probably going to snap at the kids in the morning. I'm going to have a headache, so we focus so much on that, the relief, all the things that come from the first glass, but we forget about the rest of the tape. And I don't know, like, it's so fascinating to me, like, now that I'm on this end of it, like, why did I do that? Why did I forget? Why did I have no consideration for future tape Christy? The next morning, we just don't think of it. And so tell me what your tape looked like.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty spot on there, where it was, I mean, literally this is the song that pops in my head. Oops, I Did It Again, Britney Spears. Like, literally, that is the song that would probably haunt me, to this day, where like, oops, I did it again. Here I am back to the same place. And so that tape was, I'm just going to have one. And then it, like, just like you, just exactly the way you described. And then that next day. And that's the thing, in those moments where we're not getting curious, where we are just in that autopilot responding mode to what's happening, and because of the patterned response to it, the habitual piece of it, like, we're not playing it forward. We're not thinking about all that comes after it, which I think is one of the best first ways to kind of dive into this and experience a little bit of a different result from it. Because when you consider all that comes after it, it also goes a long ways towards untangling whatever that perceived reward is of doing the thing. Because it's like, well, I can say that, yeah, it's fun, but I can tell you it's not fun to wake up with Britney Spears singing Oops, I Did It Again in my head every morning. It's not fun. It's not fun. I don't care who says otherwise. It is not fun to have that. And so, it's, what does fun, how we've talked before, like, what does fun on the greater scale look like? Playing the tape forward allows us to see all of the data, so to speak, of what is going to influence whether we want to do this thing or not. It puts us back into that place of choice, which is empowering versus, responding to that easy button.
Yeah. So true. It's so good. And it's an easy one to remember, although I'm not going to lie, I just thought that what are the generations like under us going to call this tactic, because they're not going to know what a tape is.
Oh my gosh, so true. Oh, I know. We're going to have to, come up with a different one for that, right?
We're going to have to rename this tactic.
Totally. Well, and thinking about, as kind of part of this too, not only like playing the tape forward, but rewinding. I mean, hey, we're just making this up live on the spot, ladies and gentlemen. How about rewind the tape too? And so when you're, the alcohol craving comes, instead of panicking, the worst thing we can do is panic, fight, like, oh my gosh, I'm having an alcohol craving, I don't want to have this. That is going to increase its intensity. So it's that zoom out, get curious, and rewind the tape of your day as well, and say, like, what were my thoughts before this? What was I feeling before this? What happened today? Did I have, what were my relationships? Did I have any like conflict with anybody today? How am I emotionally? What did I eat? What does my nutrition look like? What did my sleep look like last night? Have I had, I swear, like, hydration and hunger, those two things I think are so overlooked as part of why we can end up in a place of alcohol craving. When we're not meeting our nutritional needs, our hydration needs, our sleep
100%.
needs, our rest needs, then again, we get back into that kind of like hangry at the grocery store space, where it's like, well, of course, all the plans are we've thrown all the plans out the window for the healthy grilled chicken and broccoli tonight, because we've got to get out. We have so many things fighting against our our logical, rational brain's response to this that just says like, get out of this discomfort. And this is the thing we do when we're uncomfortable. So
Totally.
rewind the tape, think about your day, take that all. And the really cool part about curiosity, I know that's something that, gosh, coming up with a different word for curiosity.
No, we're just
still on my list.
We're leaning in. I like it. We're just going to lean in because that's the thing. Honestly, right? If we can imprint one thing, it's just like stay curious.
Because that keeps our learning brain online and open, and that's where we're going to be able to understand what our relationship to alcohol looks like. And then in that understanding, be able to see how to untangle it. And I lived in that not curious place for so long, for that autopilot space for so long, and perpetuated by the shame and the blame of like, here you go again. And, all of that kept me from being able to use this like valuable intel that we have when it comes to an alcohol craving. Like, okay. And again, like then rewind the tape and then play it forward and then choose. And by the way, whatever you choose, okay, you don't have to make it mean that if you choose to drink that, what are your thoughts after that? That's the other part, I think, where it's like, well, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And we put pressure on ourselves. So then again, creating that extra discomfort that then means we're more likely to do the thing we don't want to do. But when we let go of that resistance and do we welcome in a craving or do we fear a craving? That would be something I would say that would be a great kind of Tina for today. Like a tiny takeaway would be, or a tiny, new action. Just what is your approach to an alcohol craving? What comes to mind when you think of an alcohol craving? Are you in that fear-based place where like, I hope I don't have one, and what if I do? And that's fear. Or are you in that place of, okay, like thoughts are automatic and cravings come from my thoughts, cravings or urges, whatever you want to call them. They come from my thoughts and they're automatic. So there's a habitual response to it. Fine. Okay, I'm going to welcome it. I'm going to collect some data so I can understand my relationship to alcohol better, which means I have a better chance of untangling this thing if I understand it better. So.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think one of the things I think is so important to note too, which sounds so basic, but I think it's so fundamental, is that we think that these cravings are just not going to leave, right? And so the thing is, another kind of tactic light is the surf the urge, right? It's like you surf it, just feel it what it feels like in your body, recognize your thoughts, journal them out if you want to go that far, amazing. But like know that it's going to stop at some point, and that they do get easier the more that you surf them. And so I think that's also really, really important to note. And that's also where, we talked about in one of the other episodes, like the timer can come in handy. Like really feel how long it is, because I know that it can feel like forever, but they're really not, right? And if you tap into, again, what your body and your brain and everything is really seeking, it really isn't ethanol. It really isn't fermented grape juice, right? And so exactly what you said is just so important to get curious. And then the other thing too, I think, is just, if this is like it was for me, like it is with so many moms that I know, it's just an automatic, if habit loop situation where you come home from school and you just like are just opening up the wine because that's what you do, like begin to like interrupt those patterns, right? Like I know that some people that like to talk about going alcohol-free have certain opinions about alcohol-free drinks and mocktails. I'm personally all for them. I personally do not see the problem in them. I would make what we called in our house a pink lady for months and months and months, which was just ginger ale, cranberry juice, and lime. And, in the afternoon after 5 o'clock or whatever. And then my kids started getting in on it and it was fun. And that was like the thing that we did. And the other thing that I have to say about this, which I don't know if we talked about before, but for me, the glassware is really pretty. Like the glassware is really important because I like to hold a pretty glass. And so if your thing is that every night you made yourself a glass of wine or a drink or whatever, you can even have it in the same glass. but just switch it up into something like alcohol-free, and just, again, be curious. See what happens when you have a craving for alcohol and you drink something non-alcoholic. Like, just, and sit in it and see what it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. It's where our resistance comes into it that changes our experience of it and robs us of that ability to see, well, could this be as fun without alcohol? I don't know. But when I have in my mind that this is going to be awful or not fun or hard or whatever without alcohol, that's what it ends up being. But it's that kind of, that experimental mindset, the curiosity. What does it feel like to drink my LaCroix from a wine glass? I don't know, but I'm going to try it tonight and we'll see. And so that, again, collecting that kind of data from the curiosity, that's what allows us to figure out what we, how to untangle this moving forward. And I think that's a place where, whether it's, a craving for alcohol, it doesn't really matter what the thing is. We all have these points in our day, maybe, where we go into that autopilot mode where we feel discomfort of some sort, whatever it's related to. And there's and maybe it's our automatic response to pick up our phone. That in a sense is like, there's a craving for that. And so if I've set kind of this plan to not pick up my phone so often or not check my email so often, when I find myself doing the thing that I've said that I don't want to do, my mindset going into that thing ahead of time is going to make all the difference in what it ends up being.
100%. Yeah.
So you just,
I knew you were going to do this right now.
Recently. I was like,
no, yes. I don't want to make enemies, you guys. If you like coffee, so do I. Okay, go. Yeah. Ask me the question.
Well, no, I was just thinking about, that's okay. So the reason why I brought this up, so Christy,
no, it's so good.
Christy, you're on day what of coffee free?
11.
Day 11, coffee free, day 11. I'm going on 4 years now. And it's not because I was really trying to, this is my point. And so I'd love to hear kind of your difference here too. But my point in exploring my relationship to coffee, it was not this big deal, y'all, like it was with alcohol. It was just I don't know, I'm getting really, really tired in the afternoon. And I wonder what I can change, because I feel like first trimester pregnant, every afternoon at 2:00, I'm crashing. Does it have anything to do with my coffee? I don't know. We'll see. I had 1 cup a day, whatever. I got curious. I didn't have this I can never drink coffee. I shouldn't drink coffee. Coffee's and I didn't have this mindset of I can't do this thing and I want to change the thing. And instead I was just I don't know, something's not working, but I'm going to get curious about what could produce a different result in my life. And so I did the coffee. Now, meanwhile, I'll say at the time, I was still drinking wine every night. So, but for there to be a noticeable difference when I started with that, and to the point where I was oh, I don't even want the coffee. I just don't want the coffee anymore. I feel too good. Now I didn't have that emotional attachment to coffee like I did with wine, and it's not as addictive, right? But so there are different parts of that. But the point being, it was an experiment for me in saying, I don't feel great where I am right now. Let me just see what kind of variables I can play with to see by removing it, maybe it makes a difference. I'm just going to track this and collect some data around this. And so that, talking about kind of where you are with the same thing for coffee, it's, for you now currently with coffee.
Yeah. And just to let you guys know, we didn't actually talk about this before, but I had a very similar kind of approach to it. I knew Meade didn't drink coffee, but I wanted to come to it for twofold. One, a really good friend of mine, had stopped drinking it, and he said that even 1 cup in the morning still is affecting your sleep at night. And he's a school dad, and he's awesome, and he also stopped drinking, so we talk a lot. And so I was I could never do that. And then I started to think about it more and more, and then similarly to you, Meade, I was definitely experiencing that afternoon exhaustion crash. and I'm in London and I coach a lot of ladies in the States. So I was feeling the crash, like in the middle of coaching people on the Midwest and West Coast. And so I was like, okay, I want to try this. And like you said, it just didn't hold the stigma, but I wouldn't have been able to come to it from this angle, not going, I think, through the alcohol thing, because now I know, like, okay, I'm calling it 30 days trying coffee. I don't know, like, if that is even like the amount of days. I just know that, like, I'm on day 11 and I'm starting to feel the benefits in the last couple days. The first week was so hard. Yeah, I craved it, but instead of like making it mean all this stuff, I just thought, I just want to see what it feels like on the other side of this week. Like, I had read somewhere that it was like, I don't know, 1 to 9 days were the withdrawals of caffeine. And I was like, okay, I can get through 9 days. You know what I mean? And see what this feels like on the other side. And I can't even tell you, like, if the benefit, I know the benefits are real because you say the benefits are real, but from personal experience, I'm just still waiting, but like, it doesn't hold all this crazy charge. And I still look at my like Nespresso maker when I wake up at early in the morning and I'm like, you're still there and we might get back together, but I'm not sure, you know?
Yeah. You don't have to make that like permanent decision, which we talk a lot about in this space too with alcohol, where you don't have to, say you'll never drink again. If that's what you're going into, like the energy that you're bringing to it is creating more discomfort, making it harder perhaps, or putting more pressure on it versus like you did, like, well, with coffee, or, think about, so like, what if we approached our relationship to alcohol similarly to how we approach maybe if we've experimented with not drinking coffee, or if we've had, like gut issues. I know friends that have gut issues and they're like, you know what, I need to cut gluten out for this period of time and just see what comes of it. I don't know. Like, I don't have a health thing that says I have to do this, but I'm just going to get curious. What does it feel like in my body to not have dairy for this period of time, or whatever it is? And when you do that, you're actually in that open place to learn it versus the lower brain, like, oh, I've got to survive this. And so, maybe thinking about even just a relationship to alcohol, what are some other things that you've done to our listeners, like that you've done that, and how can you apply that mindset to this freedom from alcohol journey?
Yeah. It's so true and it's so good. And I'm just like thinking on the fly here though, like, why do, I know we give alcohol so many jobs, and alcohol is so addictive. And so that's the reason, obviously there's so many reasons that it's harder to break than coffee or gluten or anything like that. But I think just the moral of the story is, it's like, and it's the same as just thinking about ingesting it in the first place, right? It's like, why don't we think about, why does it hold such charge and power over us? Like, it's just wild.
Well, yeah, because we're not seeing Super Bowl commercials, people, talking about sharing a bread. I'm trying to think of a gluten example, like selling gluten as the magic elixir for connection, or or for mommy. We're going to talk about mommy wine culture on a different episode, but even just like thinking about how that wine is that common denominator for what we're really asking for. It's just to connect to people, and it's just conveniently been sold to us, without our knowing, as that way of doing it. And so it doesn't hold coffee and gluten or whatever it is, like, it doesn't hold that same charge, but we can use some of the ways that we approach those things with this, and also take away some of that power that we give alcohol. One of my favorite, I just thought of this too, like one of my favorite little tactics too is taking like the amount of actual alcohol in your beverage of choice. So whatever that is, for me, it was always wine. And so, if you take what I would have had in a night and separate just the pure alcohol content, separate that out from the sugar and the, all the other things that go into that. It's like a couple of ounces of like the pure alcohol part, the ethanol. It's a couple of ounces. We're giving, this is one of those, like, for me, that I was like, wow, we give this so much power. Pour a couple of ounces into a cup, a cup of water, and put it on your counter and walk by it, or put it on your bathroom counter. And every time you see it, think about how you're giving this, liquid, this poisonous liquid, all that power in your life. And what does that look like when you, step back and kind of get curious about that? We do give it so much more meaning, so much more power than we have to.
One of my other favorites is, do you do this one? The name your wine witch. This is a fun one that I always love to do with clients because they come up with the most hilarious names. But I think it's Claire Pooley, right? She's the one that came up with this in her book, which do you remember the name of it? Because I can't remember it right now, but it's a great book, Claire Pooley. And she just talked about naming that voice in your head, because that voice in your head gets louder and louder. Again, it's temporary. She will go away. But if you can name her and know that she's got a one-track mind, she's persistent, and she wants to undermine you at all costs, but she's not you, right? Because we build up this neural pathway, because we build up this habit loop, and we're automatically used to doing something, we do have this voice in our head. And because we've been drinking for so long, or at least I have, right, it becomes necessary to your brain equates it as necessary to survival. So the voice can get loud. The craving voice can get loud, and she can get really bloody noisy. So another fun one to do is just name her and know that she's not you, I just went with Claire Pooley is wine witch, but people have come up with some great ones. I don't know, Belinda, and I don't know. So funny, but just know that voice that you're hearing, she is not you, and she's going to seek to undermine you at all costs. And she sounds like you can start this whole thing tomorrow. You can actually stick till 1 tonight. You can interchange water with wine. She will say these things in the craving with the megaphone. And so I think it's good to call her out and know that you can beat her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I know a lot of people that find a lot of value in that for sure. And and thinking about how, maybe even thinking of her as a toddler who's irrational.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah. Knowing that she's not an adult with a rational cognitive brain. It's almost like a tantrum, it's a immediate, do the thing. And for me, I think that's something that I could totally relate to in that regard, where I see, oh, that's not me. That's this toddler voice or whatever saying you need this, when really, no, I'm the adult. No, oh, thanks for showing up, wine witch. I know you're just here to, do the job that I've conditioned you to do, but I don't have to battle you. I can welcome you in and say, I got this. No, I know that this isn't going to serve me. I know everything that you're saying. It's not true. So finding that separation for sure. I think that's so massive. Like we've talked about through practicing meditation, starting to build little practices where you are finding that space between you and the thoughts that you're having, so that in those moments, you have that ability to go, wait, no, that's not me. I don't really want this. It's not going to actually solve XYZ right now.
So. And when you hear her, interrupt that pattern, do something different. I mean, obviously there was the pink lady mocktails going around my house, but the other thing that I just got really, because, again, when I figured out that I was seeking rest and just all the things that I was seeking in wine, and it sounds cheesy, but I took a lot of baths. I got really into face masks. Don't forget, you guys, that I did this during COVID. So, face masks, baths, like walks, all of that. But I remember when we we were in lockdown, and there was like a slight, slight kind of opening in the restrictions. And a girlfriend had found a cute cottage way up in Yorkshire that she had rented. And she's like, it's available. Do you guys want it? And I was like, get me out of this city immediately. I need to see fields and fresh air. So we got in the car and I did the driving, and it was a 5.5 hour drive. And we got there and Chris started to unpack. And it was so funny because, okay, so I stopped in March, and this was, now I can't even remember, but it was several months later where I hadn't had a really strong craving in a while, but I was like, I just did that drive. I just drove my family out of a pandemic for 5 hours. Like, I need a drink. And so literally I just looked at Chris in the eyes and I was like, I'm getting in the bath. And I went upstairs and I put my AirPods in and I had whatever book, I think it was Quit Like a Woman at the time. And I just soaked myself and I put a face mask, and you know what it did? It went away. It went away in about 15 minutes.
That's so huge in being able to create that, that pause, that buffer between that automatic response. And even though you had time, all this time already doing it alcohol-free and not having that, it is one more piece for you to take with you to say like, oh, okay, I know what I need to do right now. And the reason why I know that this is a tool that works for me is because I've tried that. And that's, the other thing as part of this process, it's all in like the trying different things, and all of the tools that we provide or other people suggest, they may work or they may not, but you won't know. And the really cool part is we get to call that. Like, one of the best, I think, superpowers of doing this work is being able to say, I do know what I need. Being able to pause and say, oh, I feel uncomfortable right now. What could this be? Let me consider, what do I really need? And being able to meet that. Like, I need some, de-stress time, or I need some, I've just driven 5.5 hours and I've been in the car with the family. And speaking of toddlers and tantrums and, whine with voices and things like that, like, I need that space. And so being able to figure out what that is for us is part of this process. If we go into it with this, well, I don't know, let me see, let me experiment with it, which is so huge. And I also think that like, it reminds me of how, so, my approach being a little bit different. And then once I was done, I was done. And I never had another, craving or desire or whatever temptation. But I remember very vividly a couple months into, freedom from alcohol, Todd was traveling and he was coming back, and he was coming back on a Friday. It was cold. It was dreary. And so I guess in the past, and it's so funny how now I'm like, I guess that's what we did in the past, but it's just one more thing that we did and alcohol happened to be a part of. But my thought went to, oh, and then he'll come home and it'll be in time for him to make a fire, and then we'll catch up over cocktails. Well, I've been free from alcohol for several months. And it was one of those that in that moment, if I had maybe panicked that I was having this, oh my gosh, like I thought of alcohol, what am I making? If I made it mean that I wasn't free from alcohol, or if I made it mean that it still has some pull on me, or I made it mean that this is, alert, danger, then it would have had a completely different result than me going, oh, well, this is just this is my conditioned response to, like, for your point of driving in the car after a 5.5 hour trip. Like, that's just a conditioned response. It doesn't mean, necessarily that you want to drink, that you're having an alcohol craving does not equal the desire to drink.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean that. I think that's where also we have that opportunity to get really curious. Like, just because I'm thinking about alcohol right now, wait, do I want that? And that's what I ended up doing in that moment. It was like, wait, why am I having this interesting? Okay. Do I want to drink? No, I don't. Okay, great. Move on. It's just, I laughed about it, like that it was a thought, and it reminded me of how habituated this had become. And of course my brain was experiencing that because it's pulling from the past, where this setup, where Todd coming back in town and us having, caught up all week, that would be what would be connecting. But now I have new pathways that say, oh yeah, no, that's not what we do now. And this is why. And so I think that's such a good, the way you describe that. And, those are just good examples of how the thoughts can be automatic, and how, so an alcohol craving equals a thought doesn't equal necessarily the desire to drink. Yeah. And when we can get curious about that and say, wait, does this mean I really want to drink? Well, no, it's just, this is what, that habit loop is strong. That old pathway is a lot less than it used to be, but it's the first time I'm experiencing this in a new way. Oh, okay. So it's that turn to curiosity that really is so massive. And that turn to curiosity, I think, is really hard in the moment. But the more we practice it, and I like to, I always say, like, it's pause and connect to your breath. Like, find your breath in your body. How do I know I'm breathing? When I can pause and connect to my breath, whether it's whatever thought it is that I don't want to be having about something, then I can get the truth versus the escalation of the mind adding on all the stories that keep me, kind of choosing what I don't want to choose.
Yeah, so true. I can relate to that one so much. There was, so March I stopped, and then December, and it was actually the same week that I had interviewed with T&M to enter their certification program. So I was like, in full freedom, and a really, really dear girlfriend of mine passed away, and literally was within minutes. And it was like, I saw myself driving to the bar. I was in Palm Beach at the time, driving to the bar, sitting down and ordering a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. And I literally there were so many emotions going on because I just found out a dear friend had passed away. But like, I was just like, what? Where did that come from? But that's what I did with grief. That's what I did all the time. So of course that thought was going to still pop up here and there. It didn't mean I actually wanted to drink. I was ready to train to be a coach,
Yeah. You didn't make it mean, you didn't add on that layer of meaning that then, story that,
all stories.
It all comes, oh my gosh, it all comes back to stories. And that is the level at which we have control. That's the greatest, most mind-blowing part of all of this. That is where that's where we're empowered. It's with the story, and how much of our life where we're not happy with maybe the results we're getting, how much of it is because we have things that are outside of our control, and how much of it is because of the stories that we add to it, that add to our inability to do the thing that that we're trying to, whatever it is, untangle. So it's that layer that I love.
I'm sure that we'll talk a lot more about cravings throughout other episodes, but as we're wrapping up, what's our tiny Tina, what's our tiny action?
Yeah. So, I would say maybe the prepping before, get really curious. As you're, as you've listened to this, I do this with clients after calls, plan to spend, after we hang up, plan to spend 10 minutes just writing down, either your tiny takeaway, your TTA, or your tiny new action, your Tina, little acronym situation. But that way, whatever you've absorbed allows you to, again, kind of turn to that curiosity and keep it going. So maybe it's, what are my thoughts about alcohol cravings? Am I approaching them? If this is something that I am worried about in my life, I'm doing this 30-day dry January thing, or 30-day reset, whatever. And this is the thing that kind of keeps me up at night. What am I going to do when I have this craving or whatever? I'm about to start something. Well, start thinking now, what are your thoughts? Are you fearing having the craving, or is there a way to reframe that as I'm going to welcome that because there's some learning in that. Okay, so the craving's going to come, or the craving's not. I don't have control over whether or not it comes, but I can, if I fear it, what is the result of that? How am I making it harder for myself to not do the thing? versus if I welcome it and go, okay, I'll be curious about this. I'm going to go, what is this really about? I'm going to learn from this. And what's the difference in that? That would be my Tina for today. Do you have one? Is there anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just say, like, we've given a lot of tactics, a lot to think about. Like, remember one and also experiment with it. The go-to one for so many people is play the tape forward, and it's so easy and it's easy to remember. So my teeny Tina, oh my gosh.
I know.
My tiny Tina is just like, try that tactic and see how it works out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Try it. And try differently. Try something new.
Awesome.
Love it. So fun.
Thank you guys all for tuning in. Don't forget to come join us in our community, which you can sign up for at butjesusdrankwine.com. And we will see you next Monday. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com. And make sure you follow us over on the gram at Love Life Sober with Christy and Meade at I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites at meadhollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle to find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you. We'll see you next week.